Hi. Well, I wasn't planning on vlogging just because there's nothing pressing on my mind. And anyway, I kind of turn into back in high school. Someone, like an elder in my life, told me that the band Genesis uh, had actually been cool in the 70s. Like in my mind, Genesis was Phil Collins, who has some songs I've always liked, but they weren't cool at all. So, and they were like, whoever this was like, Peter Gabriel was in it, and he used to, like, just freaky makeup, and like the songs were really weird, and like, and even that, it was like, I liked Peter Gabriel, that album, so, you know this. Um, but he's not freakish in that. And just his songs are just very beautiful. So their last album with Peter Gabriel is called The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. So in high school I bought it and I was like, I could not get into it. I didn't understand it and I gave up on it forever. And then a couple of, like last week, Paul and I got to talking about Genesis, and I learned that Genesis was prog rock, and that they were innovators in prog rock. Like they influenced Yes and Rush and Sitting on a Park Bench. I don't know. They no, I don't know. I don't know. They were just a major prog rock band, and so we were on Apple Music, and I was like, I have to hear some. So we listened to a little bit of each of their albums, and I was like, I hate this music. I don't like prog rock. It's just like, switching time signatures and like uh, uh, lots of you can listen for yourself if you don't know what I'm talking about. But I got it's been a while now that I've had in the back of my mind an attraction for Peter Gabriel and an interest in Peter Gabriel. You sent me that video of him spinning around with Kate Bush. My thing for Peter Gabriel kind of sprung from my thing for Kate Bush, actually. And then back in high school, I really liked the album So, that has all those pretty songs. So, anyway, this is like scramble. Paul and I are listening to these things. Genesis, I'm hating it. But I'm like, I want to see the pictures of him. And I start like Googling images of him in Genesis. And he's really freaky. It's interesting. But there's also pictures where he's not in stage makeup and costumes. And he's like hotter than I could like even believe than I've ever known him to be. In my mind, he was so Peter Gabriel, which was handsome 40 something man. And what I know him to be now is fat and bald with a white goatee, but with the kindest eyes. Like there's something with him. He's got really, so even though he's not physically attractive anymore, and I want him to be, and I keep trying to see him like, I could do it, but like he wears like Fu Manchu shirts, and part of it is his style. If he wore like more tight and body revealing styles, like even though he's quite large, and got rid of that goatee, which I think is hiding like double chin. But anyway, he's 60 something years old. Why should he give a shit? And he's got these beautiful eyes and beautiful speaking voice and beautiful singing voice. Anyway, so like this Peter Gabriel of his early 20s is so hot. So like I'm in love with him. Now, meanwhile, and so I've kind of like been wanting to listen to So, and then I was into So, and then that came out in like 89, and then he had some albums like from 92, 94, and I remember hearing like a single from the 92 one, and like he just was like totally not cool to me anymore, and I didn't like the song, I didn't like the album cover, so I just gave up on him forever, till now. And so but like in Portland, when we were still living on 28th, I I've always been obsessed with the song Mercy Street on his album. So, and I was listening to that a bunch, and I said to Paul, I was like, can we cover this? And he listened to it, and he was like, it's kind of layered, and it's got like those little bells, and like he was like, no. and I was upset. I was like, we could tailor it in our own way. Like, and Mercy Street is there is a poem called Mercy Street by Anne Sexton, and Peter Gabriel saw this poem and was very moved by it, and like disturbed and inspired by it, and wrote this song. So it's kind of interesting. It's like has elements of the original poem, but it's his own song, his own words. So today I was like, I am going to cover Mercy Street. And okay, we don't have bells, but we have a xylophone. And I was like, I can get the rhythm of the xylophone and maybe some other parts of it, some keyboard I could copy, like it is fairly simple. It's just a lot of layers. And I'll do this. But it didn't sound right. It sounded kind of cool. I mean, I just knew quickly. I mean, I gave it a shot, but soon knew like I knew I could never mimic or recreate this high production, expensively made, with all these different keyboards and layers if I don't even know what. Nor could I there's just no way on the universe that I could sound like Peter Gabriel and his harmonies. It's just like not going to happen. But I had this feeling. I was like, I can do something with this song because I love it. So I kept going today, and Poppy was in the zone with her videos, and I made an interesting song, and I went more to the source material of Anne Sexton's poem, which is a disturbing poem. Okay, so that's cool. Now, meanwhile, I had some time today where I was zoning on the couch with Poppy, and I was reading interviews and watching interviews with him. I watched a TED Talk that he did like 10 years ago. I think it was mostly about Amnesty International. He does so many humanitarian things. Okay, so I think he was on an Amnesty International trip to somewhere in South America, and he was flying down there, and there was a woman who was also traveling with him who was from this country that they were going to. And she told a story that was like horrible, heartbreaking, gruesome, like her family being shot in front of her or something. I can't remember, but it was awful. And he's like, I was thinking about like my privilege and that I've always had, and but that there was one thing that I could connect with her on, as far as suffering and human pain. And he was at a boarding school, and he said he loved trees in the forest, and he was out like wandering in the forest, like kind of spaced out. He was a dreamer, and a whole bunch of these thuggish classmates found him in there, and they took turns beating the shit out of him, and they raped him. And then they ran away, and he was in like agonizing pain and shame, and just crushed. And he never spoke again for the rest of school, unless he absolutely had to, like for a class. And he just became completely withdrawn. It's just sad. And there was this song that I listened to called Digging in the Dirt that someone that I read on a message board was like, you have to check out the song and video. And he said the song Digging in the Dirt was about problems in his relationship that at the time had been having with his daughter, who was a young woman at that point, and what he'd been going through in therapy. And there's all this like imagery, like him being buried and worms crawling over him. He's got those flipped out videos, like even Sledgehammer, and where it's the stop motion animation deal. It's creative, and I'd never seen this video, but like also shows him like raging out. It's a weird video, but what I really noticed was there was some line, I can't remember the line, but it was like about your pain. it, it had meaning to me. It was meaningful. The place, it was like the place where your pain lives or something. And anyway, then I read about or watched the TED Talk and heard about the rape, and I was just like, pain, poor Gabriel. Do I have anything else to say about Peter Gabriel? I have a real bad crush on him. I mean, this happens to me. There'll be someone I'm into, and then I love them. But I think he has been hovering around the edges of my consciousness for a few years now. And even going back to that album, So, I was very young when that came out. Jacqueline had it, and I just thought it was so beautiful. And I hated Sledgehammer and that other one big time. I mean, those were awful. But the other songs that are soft and beautiful, and he looks handsome on the cover. So I had nostalgic feelings for him, of somewhat of a crush from the past, and then just, I don't know, he's been bubbling up. I was getting really into Kate Bush, and there's that connection. Yeah, he seems like a good guy, but you don't really know. I mean, he's a rock dude. He looks so beatific, and yet you gotta wonder, are you a peg like every rocker ever? I don't know. He seems to possess. I can't. I've seen still pictures and some live interviews now, and I can't stress how kind his eyes are, and yet there's there's pain and thoughtfulness and empathy. He's super into, I used to think it was cheesy in the 90s. He was like Mr. World Music, but he was really throwing himself and a lot of his money into humanitarian efforts, like Amnesty International and Habitat for Humanity, and this organization he started called WOMAD that has something to do with art and helping people. I don't know. So I think that comes from a real place in him. He spends most of his time doing that, and when he makes music, it's kind of to fund that his efforts. So much respect, okay. But I'm just creeped out that I've got this crush. Why you don't get these crushes? Do you get crush? You had a crush on Walter White. I had a crush on Don Draper, not John Hamm, Don Draper. It's just a painful feeling, because it's you will never know me, and I will never know you. And if you knew me, you probably wouldn't be into me anyway. We probably would not have an affair. I was thinking about sending him the song I made, but would he ever get it? And be like, "Dear Mr. Gabriel, I've always loved your song Mercy Street, and I myself have only just discovered the poem Mercy Street by Anne Sexton, and I was inspired to make a song. Your song inspired me to make a song based on the same poem. I don't think I would say I really wanted to cover your song, but I was incapable, especially without the help of my musician husband. He could have come up with something. Paul does covers. He does covers. He could have done this. Well, anyway, it's 14:20, so I gotta go.